Hi knitters, it's Mimi with Pastiche Knitwear. Let's learn how to do the Italian cast on today. This cast on is typically used as a beginning for double knitting or for a knit one purl one ribbing, and it's an easier substitute for a tubular cast on. Now it's very similar in setup to a long tail cast on, both in hand placement and in yarn estimation. So let's just get going with that. Let's estimate for yarn. So what I typically do is I take half the amount of stitches that I need to cast on, and I will wind the yarn one time around that needle for each stitch that I need. So if I need 40 stitches, I'll wind 20 on here. When I get to that spot, I pull it off, I double the yarn, and that's where we're going to begin the cast on. So for my hand placement, I like to make a C with my left hand. Now, if you are left-handed, you would just mirror image this. So I make a C with my left hand and I drape the yarn over it. And now I have the live end over my index finger, the tail end over my thumb. I like to use mnemonic devices and I tell myself TT, tail over thumb. Now I have 3 remaining fingers and they're right here, and I'm going to grab both strands with those 3 remaining fingers, and then I have this strand that's running horizontally between my thumb and my forefinger. So that is what we are going to be addressing to begin. Now with this is we're going to be alternating casting on a knit stitch and a purl stitch. But for this one, we're going to actually begin with a purl stitch. Now when I begin with a purl stitch, I'm going to have my needle pointing away from me. I'm going to dip down underneath that strand, point the needle tip to the left, and I would be ready to go, and this would be my first stitch, which would be a purl stitch. Now if your pattern calls for beginning with a knit stitch, just come the opposite way. Come from top to bottom, dip under, and rotate to the left again, and then you'll be good to go. And if you were doing this and began with a knit, the next stitch you would make would be a purl. So we're always alternating. But for our purposes, we're going to begin with a purl. So I'm going to come in on the left-hand side here, dip under, rotate to the left. Now we are going to be using these 2 strands in between that look like kind of a sideways V, look like a greater than symbol. So this front strand will be how we begin our knit stitches. We'll always be beginning with the front strand and coming underneath it. When we're making our purl stitches, those are always going to be, we're going to be coming from behind the top strand. Let me get that extra out of the way so we can see a little better. So because we began with a purl, we're going to start with a knit. So I'm going to come under the front strand, over the back strand, and swing up to create the knit stitch. Now for the purl stitch, it's a little bit different. I'm going to start from behind the top strand, but I'm going to come underneath both stitches and then dip the tip of my needle back in and swing up to create the purl stitch. So now let's do another knit stitch. We're going to come under the front, over the back, and swing it up. Now to create the purl stitch, we're going to come from the back, we're going to come under both strands, dip the tip of your needle back in between them, and then swing up. We're going to alternate these 2 until we have the appropriate number of stitches that we need. So I need another knit stitch, so I'm going to come under the front, over the back, swing it up. For my purl stitch, I'm going to come from behind, under both strands, dip the tip of my needle back in between them, and swing it up. Now because I began with a knit stitch, I did not begin with a knit stitch. I began with a purl stitch. I'm going to end with a knit stitch. So I'm going to do a few more and then I'm going to end with a knit. So I'm going to do under the front, over the back, swing up, that's my knit. To do my purl, I'm going to come from behind, under both strands, dip back, swing up. I'm going to do 1 more knit, under, over, and up. Now when I'm finished, you can see that these are not affixed. We've just been winding the yarn around the needle. So I'm just going to kind of hold on to that as I turn it around. And I'm going to work a double knit piece of fabric here, which is oftentimes what you'll be using this kind of cast on for. So you can see that the first stitch here presents as a purl stitch. So I'm going to slip that purlwise with the yarn in front. And then this following stitch I'm going to knit. Then I'm going to slip 1 purlwise with the yarn in front and knit. which is really all that double knitting is alternating slipping a stitch and working a stitch. So we're just going to do this to the end of the row. And we'll knit this last one. And then we're finished. And I have a sample over here of what this double knitted fabric looks like and what the cast on looks like. So it's this continuous cast on that looks unbroken at the bottom. So it's quite beautiful. So I hope you give this a try, and please let me know how you do. And if this has been helpful to you, please consider subscribing. Thanks.